Oh, what's up, guys? We'll be starting very shortly. As you can see, we're making some serious progress right now. Welcome to the live stream. So, as I'm finishing up a couple of things, let me just show you guys where we're at so far. So, we've got our guns installed. As you can see, we've still got a little bit of painting to do on some pieces that have been installed. We've got our bags installed. And I'm still trying to decide exactly what I want to do for like the loops of the bags. I want to make it super simple. So I'm going to come up with an easy solution that does not involve cutting out tiny pieces of photo etch. I think that's going to be crazy. So we're not going to do that. Hey, Braden. We don't stream on Wednesdays anymore. I think I mentioned that last week and the week before that. What's up, Kappa? Let me see if I can get my chat bot to work real quick before we start. Forget it. Yeah, so anyway. So you can see we've made a lot of progress. One of the cool things is I did a lot of oil work on all of those fabric pieces. So you can see we have a lot of good variation in all of the canvas and the fabric that's going on. We've got our boxes installed even though they're not officially weathered yet. All of the canvas pieces have been installed here. So we've made some very decent progress. And I've got a couple of pieces left over, but I'm not even going to worry about them, honestly. So, today, I'm looking... Yeah. Alright, so today I think we're going to start B25 Mitchell. No problem, only it's Revel. Yeah... Oh, thanks, Kappa. Yeah, I mean, you get what you can get, right? So, if it's just a Revel, just do the best that you can with a Revel. That's... Yeah, no problem. Thanks for hopping on. Hey, by the way, Kappa, I guess I'll just tell everybody now. I'm adjusting, kind of pivoting how I'm going to be doing my stream. So... I'm going to switch from doing live content to more focused tutorial content, allowing me to do much better editing, add much more effects and post work so that you guys can see exactly what kinds of tools and materials I'm using, how much paint I'm using, all that kind of stuff that we just can't do live. So I'm just going to be doing some adjustments. It's going to obviously affect the live stream, but there's only been 3 to 6 people on the live stream at one time ever anyway, so it's really just not the right time to be doing live. I need to have more people involved to be able to get the live stream to work properly. So we're going to move towards doing very focused technique videos, and I'll still be doing build videos, but they'll be behind the scenes and they'll be released probably once a month or so. So that's the plan. So I apologize to both of you guys who've been on forever. But we're just going to pivot a little bit, and we'll still have time to talk, and we can chat on all the other social medias, especially Facebook and Instagram and all that stuff. But we're going to stop doing live for a little while just to focus in more on teaching. And that way I can do many more projects versus just focusing on one thing for 2 months. So, that's the deal. But have fun. Go out and have fun. And we're just going to be working on these tank treads, getting all the mud the proper color, doing some more weathering. And then I might start the tank treads themselves. We'll see. Yeah, take care too. Okay. So we've got this mud. And it's cool. Everything looks pretty decent. However, it doesn't look very wet. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to try to clean this up. So I've got a basic brush going right here. And I'm just going to dip this in some water that I've got up at the top. And the first step is going to be to try to get these wheels nice and cleaned off. Because we want the wheels to be smooth. Because they do all the work. And I'm just going to be very gingerly setting these things down. Now that we've got all that stowage installed upstairs. So luckily all of this mud is water soluble, so we can wipe it off and clean it, and you can see like I'm wiping it off on my hand and it's pulling off the mud. So luckily I've got a napkin handy. Should start using a napkin here. Yeah, I mean, it may not. What it's really going to help me do is be able to focus in. What I'm realizing is that the way that I like to work is I like to put a lot of effort into smaller tasks at once. And we've been doing this for 13 or 14 sessions, and I'm just ready to move on. And I think it's boring in some places to watch this live stream because, like, for example, like, how long does it take for me to wipe off all this mud and clean it up? And it's a technique that you need to do, you know, doing the finishing work. But at the same time, I don't want you guys to have to sit through this process. I would rather that you guys be able to sit through enjoyable things. So, I want to be able to do more polished content. And then, obviously the goal is to be able to free up more time and resources as the channel grows, which in that point you're exactly right. And then once there's more time and resources allotted, then we can go back to live streaming. And I can figure out better ways to make use of the technology. What about the wheel on the very end? Oh, these wheels here? I'm leaving them off until I put the tank treads on. Because otherwise the tank treads will be really tight. It's already going to be a really tight fit. Just to get... Oops. See, I'm going to have to... Some things on the edge I probably shouldn't have put on yet. It's going to be a really tight fit to get the tank treads to go through here anyway. So I want to give myself a little bit of leeway. If that's what you're talking about. So they're just sitting over in a paper plate. So I'm just continuing to knock this stuff off, and once it's dry, I'll be able to put a nice steel color, just a paint color around these rims. And they'll look great. And I apologize for the chatting. My chat thing's not working, so I've got to look over every once in a while. Yeah, I mean, you can definitely slip it on and off. But that's not how I'm installing everything. Once it goes on, it's going to be glued on. I don't like to... My personal taste isn't to make a lot of things removable. It's more to permanently install it. So whenever it's ready to go on, I'll just put it on. And it'll have the same look as these do anyway, so no worries there. Okay, so now I'm just going through and I'm just going to make some of this mud a little bit more subtle before we start dyeing the mud a darker color. So we're just freeing up some more of that green. And from some of the references that I've looked at, it seems like a lot of the tops of the wheels are more green because that's where the mud will settle down at the bottom. So I'm just going to relieve some of the green from the top. See if I can get this brown to stay this color, it'd be perfect. Probably what I'm going to end up doing is using a soldering iron or some sort of hot tool. I've got a couple of different options for hot tools and literally just kind of melt it apart. And I'm still kind of going back and forth on the diorama part, to be honest with you. I am drawn to the diorama portion, but at the same time, to do the diorama portion correctly, you need a bunch of dead figures and stuff, which is going to take forevers. So I'm still considering my options. See this front part, that mud's looking pretty good. So let's shift over to this side. So Braden, here's my question to you. Since I'm going to start doing more technique lessons, and let's say, you know, if I'm doing something on the tank, I'll make a short video on what I'm doing versus doing long ones. But if you could learn anything about model making, airplanes, tanks, doesn't matter, like, what type of technique that you've seen on social media or books or whatever would you like to learn most? So again, just lots of water. Just removing some of the mud, getting some of that color back. It's more realistic that way. There we go. Okay. Clean that brush out. Let's move some of this mud out of the way. Trying to keep the workstation just a little bit cleaner these days. I'm going to start doing a lot of diorama, small diorama tutorials. That's going to be the first thing after we get through the airbrushing stuff. because I'm going to find that really enjoyable, where we're doing little dioramas about this big, just showing you how to... stuff that you could use for anything. Nice. Cool. That's exactly what I was thinking. Yeah, dioramas are fun, and with, like, my love, which is the figures, like, doing small dioramas are perfect, and then you can just take those exact same techniques and you can make whatever size diorama you're looking for. So, yeah, I think I'm going to work on that. Water techniques, grass techniques, mud techniques, stone, all of that stuff. And I'm hoping to be able to teach how to do that on a budget versus having to spend the money for all the expensive supplies. Okay. So, let me look over at the paint collection, and let's see what I think is going to give us some really good wet mud. I definitely think we should use... I'm going to use the carbon pigment. Let's see, wet fluid. Probably some pigment fixer. And then if all else fails... I think everything else I've got is mostly for the actual, like, weathering, so we'll ignore that stuff. Yeah, I think we're just going to stick with these dark colors for now. So I've got wet fluid effects, which is just a gloss. I'm assuming this is just a gloss medium. So that'll dry gloss. We've got pigment fixer for fixing pigments, which is a specific kind of glue. And then we've got our dark pigment, which is a Vallejo carbon black. Yeah, this is just a little container. It was hanging off the side pretty far back, so I probably should not have put it on until I was done with the undercarriage area and it was sitting in its forever home. So I'm going to apply this, and then we're going to wipe off some of it. I'm wondering, whoop, that tape's just a little bit too tall. I should find a piece of foam to do this lifting process. Like that. Okay. I'm going to add a little bit of water. One of these cups, and then we're going to use another cup to make some mud. So that is very, 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 very dark. I think we need some... a little bit of earth. Now this is wet. That's an enamel color. Don't want that. Okay, let me read this. My paint makes me mad. It was gloss and painted the whole model and then decided to go flat and had to make corrections. And now I have flat again, but gloss. Now I have flat again, gloss, but it's the same. Redo that second sentence again. I'm a little bit confused. So you had to fix it, so you made it flat, right? I'm assuming that you used like Model Master's flat lacquer, but now you have to do corrections and it's glossy again. And you have gloss paint, so you're trying to like match it or whatever. You had a gloss base paint, but made some mistakes and went over it with the same paint, but it changed and went flat. Oh. Okay, so the first question is, do you want it to be gloss? If you do want it to be gloss, then you need a gloss varnish, and that'll make all of it gloss, and you can just seal the whole thing and make it varnish. If you want it flat, then you'll need Model Master's Dull Coat, and I'll show you 2 different bottles of that. And the next time you go to Hobby Lobby, you just need to get some of that, and that'll fix it too. It's harder when you're mixing and matching and you accidentally have to go over the whole thing. And then you've got to go back over the stuff that you didn't want. That's when it gets really tough. But fixing something like that shouldn't be too hard. Here, let me show you. Okay. Over here... So you've got one option, which is this one. That's the flat Model Master Spray Lacquer Overcoat. Again, it's lacquer, so it will eat through some stuff, so go light coats. Or, and that's $7 at Hobby Lobby, you can go with the exact same thing in Brushable, which, I don't remember how much this was. It's probably $4 or $5. I've had it for forever, like years and years and years and years. And that's a brushable kind, if you just need to do specific stuff. And they make gloss of the same thing. So, one or the other, either the flat or the gloss of that is a good choice. There are plenty of like Vallejo little bottles of gloss if you want to go the gloss route, but it's harder to get a pure flat finish from companies like Vallejo. Really, the only flat finish is going to be that lacquer as far as I know. Even the matte stuff from Vallejo or whatever, it just does not go flat. It's close, but it's not quite. So it seems like working with these pigments in the mud and stuff, it is always, well, I guess for me it's an experiment because I've never used them before, but I'm not sure how they're going to dry, like ever. So that's always fun. Like, it's going on nice and dark and it looks really cool, but I have no idea how it's actually going to dry. If this is doing anything for me whatsoever. So we'll find out. I'm hoping that there's enough black in there that it stays. And I'm not worrying about the undercarriage. That was just, for some reason I was doing that. Okay, well then I would just say move on to something else. Like you've got the B25 Mitchell, you can start building that or something like that. You know, just kind of shelve what you're doing for a minute. And then the next time you guys go out, pick up some Model Masters. I wish there was an easier solution. If I ever do find like the homemade flat color solution, or if anybody knows of it that's watching this video, dudes, post it up in the comments. Like secret weapon stuff would be a DIY flat sealer. So I'm just gonna kind of be in rough with everything a little bit while I'm trying to darken everything up. Just getting that dark color shoved into all these nooks and crannies. I think what we're gonna end up doing today, because I kind of feel like it, I haven't studied it, so I'm actually going to be following along with my research, which will be interesting. But I think I want to pull out those tank treads and play with them. Because I'm ready to get some tank treads on this bad boy. And they'll take forever to dry, so if we start them tonight, then they'll be ready tomorrow. So I'm covering over like the fabric that we did. Up here in the front, and I'm just doing a little couple of splatters that I can rework later. Just because there is definitely going to be some mud going on up there. Oh yeah, that is looking great. So now we grab those wheels. Sorry, out of shot. My bad. Get those things covered up. That'll be a good start. We can always touch it up. Yeah. I like that. And I don't think I'm going to use the wet stuff yet. I think we're going to hold off on that for a minute, just because I'm not exactly sure how wet I want everything, and if I make that choice now, then I can't... Well, I guess I could go back with that flat coat, but then I'm painting a lot. We try to prevent that. Okay, so I moved the camera off of my workstation, and I feel like it's shaking even more now. That's crazy. What kind of black wash? The black wash was created using carbon black pigment and water. And then I mixed that pigment with just a little bit of natural umber pigment. So just two dry pigments. If I'm going to make an actual black wash, then I'm most likely going to use ivory black oil with a little bit of mineral spirits. That would be my best wash method right now. And I do that after sealing the acrylic. Okay. Alright. So let's let this dry. We'll do some pigment fixer on that later. So let us... I guess we're going to leave the palette. We're probably going to use that. Let me go grab some tank treads, and let's do some tank tread work. Okay. I'm gonna need to pull out my research on tank treads here in just a second. So I'm rolling this rubber backwards, working to try to get everything nice and loose. Yes, you can. It just depends on what you want to do with the wash. If you mix acrylics with the wash, then that wash is going to stain really quickly and you're not going to be able to remove it. So it's easier to make a wash out of an oil-based paint or an enamel paint, because then all the spots that you put the wash in that you don't want the wash to be in, because it's going to overflow your recessed areas and make lines. So you want to be able to remove that. You can do that if you work in very small spots, like very carefully with acrylics, and they make acrylic washes that have a little bit more working time. But I found that it's easier to do that kind of stuff with oils. Oh yeah, there you go. Use enamel. Yeah. What the heck? My tank tread research is garbled. That's really weird. It is my favorite when the things that you need don't work and there's no reason why. Why the heck? Ah, here we go. Sorry, just scrolling through. Where's my tank stuff? Okay, painting tread. Alright, let's look at this stuff. So our first step is to do a primer coat. So let's get the airbrush going. So these are not, this is not the same tread that's in the actual movie Fury, unfortunately. They didn't come with the right tread. So we're just going to do what came with the model kit. I was not going to buy extra treads. So it looks like what we're going to do is we're going to paint it up with a nice dark gray. and then get these links painted with a dark rust color, and then start using pigments. So, not too hard to start with. Alright, so first thing and foremost, as far as the airbrush stuff goes, you always use a little bit of flow improver. Now we're going to mix a dark gray, because it needs to look like rubber eventually. So I'm going to mix... Whoa! The lid was not on that, so I just threw my black paint across the room, which is awesome. Pardon me for a second while I go wipe a little bit of paint off the wall. I think that's a first. Alright, that just made it horribly worse. That sucks. Nothing like getting black paint on the walls of an apartment that you don't own. Oh well. They'd probably have to repaint anyway. No squabbling over spilt milk or whatever they say. Alright. So let's mix this up. There we go. Nice dark gray. And this is pretty thick, actually. So just add a little bit more flow improver. And I do want it to be thick. I want it to lay down pretty thick, but we also don't want it to clog up the airbrush. Okay. See, that laid down very well. Nice and smooth. So, let's go ahead and cook it just a little bit. See if we can keep it from blowing away. Alright, cool. And that's pretty much all the gray that we need, so I made a lot more than I needed. While we wait for that to dry, let me clean the airbrush out real quick. So as a finishing touch with the airbrush, I'm always cleaning it with isopropyl alcohol now as a finisher, so that any pigment that's in there will break up, any paint that's wanting to dry on the needle will break up, all that kind of stuff. It smells atrocious, but it does the job. Okay, back to the paint, and let's grab some Old Rust. Make sure we screw the bottle on the black this time. So let's flip these guys over. So we're using AK Interactive Old Rust, and it comes in a consistency that is wonderful for airbrushing. It is not as good as a brush paint. They've come out with some new stuff, and I'm looking forward to trying it out. I'm hoping that they've got a brushable line. Otherwise, I need to get some rust colors from Scale 75 or Reaper or Vallejo or something. So I don't know if you guys noticed, I'm sure you did, that I've got aluminum foil over my palette. And I realized that even though palettes are inexpensive, and you can pick a few of them up for a couple of dollars at Hobby Lobby, as you know, Braden, it's kind of a pain sometimes to go to Hobby Lobby. And there's no point in wasting the money. So having aluminum foil around it has covered the palette, and then when I'm completely full up with the palette, then I just empty the aluminum foil, trash it, and boom, make another one. Or I use a wet palette, which is an interesting technique, and I use that mostly for figure painting. But it's like a specific kind of wax paper that absorbs water, and you stick it in a wet container, and then you put your paints on top of that, and it keeps the paint wet for like weeks at a time, and also helps to thin them. It's wonderful. So I'm not super worried about any spots that I get on the tank tread itself. It's going to be covered over in pigments and stuff. So I'm trying, but I'm not concerned about mistakes, if that makes any sense. I'm not painstakingly doing this. And I'm using the Winsor & Newton Series 7 brushes for all of this acrylic work. They are absolutely wonderful brushes. I still consider them the best brushes I've ever worked with in my entire life. So that's one side. Oh, the other side is almost done. So it's things like this particular section where, like if I was doing an edited video on how to do tank treads, you would see me do like 4 or 5 pieces, and then I'd skip to the end, where you don't have to see me repeat this 100 times. So it's things like this that I'm more excited about for being able to do specific edited videos. Plus I've got a really cool system that I'm working on finalizing with my new graphic design package, because I'm changing up the look of both my website and my channel. but I want to have overlays either at the bottom or the right-hand side of the screen where you can see what paint I'm using in what consistency while I'm using it. So instead of you seeing me being like, hey, I'm using this, and then it goes away or whatever, off to the right-hand side of the screen, let's say, there'll be a bunch of little circles. It'll be like, AK Interactive, Old Rust, like out of the bottle, or, you know, full consistency, or however I'm going to display it. That way, for those of you who are taking notes or very eager to learn or whatever, you know exactly what's being used. Cool. I'll see you later, Braden. So just running up and down the side real quick. There we go. That one's done. Again, I apologize that this takes a minute. But it's all good stuff. I know it's got to be... I think it's got to be rarer to see somebody do tank treads. I don't know that I've seen anybody actually do them from start to finish. Well, I want to thank you to the one silent watcher that's following live on this content. I really do appreciate you being here and watching the video. And if you've got any questions about anything, please don't hesitate to chat or drop me a line. Flip it over, almost done. You know, sometimes I feel like it's cheating for companies to thin their paints. I'm not sure what everybody else thinks about that. I'll be interested to hear your comments, because I love when I've been tooting the horn of AK Interactive since I started this channel, and I still love them, but things like this where I'm trying to brush on these rust paints and they're just super thin, so it's harder to get a consistent coating. And I know the paint quality is top-notch, but when you buy their rust set, do they really expect you to airbrush like detailed variations in rust? I wonder. I mean, the same could be said for like the Vallejo airline, which to me is just a waste of money, because all that is less paint and more of their flow aid or airbrush thinner. I mean, we've got a huge bottle of their flow aid already, and we still use it with their airline. But they definitely thin the paint with something. And whatever that something is, it's not expensive. Okay. So we've got the rust installed. Clean out our brush real quick. So the next step we are going to go over we're going to start going over this with a dark, thinking we're going to try oxide, because it's supposed to be a rubber looking material. Trying to see what that looks like, and it's very, very faint for how much pigment I'm using, so I'm thinking I'm going to be better off using a color of some kind. So let's pull out the black gray. I'm going to put some of that in the palette, and then I'm going to grab one of these little flat brushes. I'm going to fully saturate it. Then tap it off on a napkin. And it's not that much darker than the actual gray. So let's pull out ooh, that's a good idea, actually. Alright, so the black primer, Vallejo black primer, has a pretty chalky consistency. So we are going to dry brush with that. Again, dab it off on a napkin. Very lightly. So we've got a little bit of contrast going on there. Might be hard to tell black on black. Okay. So let's flip this over. And now this should show up pretty decently, because we're just going to be touching off the tops of these. And it's going to be a similar technique that we're going to use with the steel color as well. When these things really come to life is going to be with the pigments, which I'm very much looking forward to. That'll be coming soon. Okay. So, next step. Put that brush down. Hey, what's up, Danny? Good to see you on there. We're going to pull out our dark steel pigment. And then we're going to pull up my Google Drive and take a quick look at the real tank treads. And I'm trying to see if I can find these specific treads and where the metal surfaces are. T66 tread. Oh, here we go. All steel. Dang. That's crazy. Yep, that's exactly what they are. So these are all steel treads. Which is cool, because they're going to look awesome. So I feel like I actually need to go back with the rust, and we need to rust the edges, because everything's steel. The whole thing is steel. Because once we accent this with the metal, we want to have that rust underneath to give us a really good contrast. Alright, nice, smooth, long strokes. So I'm pretty sure, and from the picture that I saw, these were painted steel treads. But you know, the first thing to go is going to be that paint, even if it was like anodized on there, if they had anodizing back then. So these treads would have been wrecked. Oh, what's up, dude? Let me show you real quick. Sorry, we're doing something a little bit boring for just a couple of minutes while I'm getting these treads ready. We're working on the Sherman tank from Fury. So the point that we've gotten right now is just before the actual weathering. So we've done a little bit of obvious mud work, but no dust work or weathering on this surface, the top surface of the tank yet. And that's going to be coming later. Not later tonight. But I want to get some treads on there, so we're doing the tank treads real quick, which is... not on the schedule, but I felt like doing it. So I'm glad you're here. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask. I usually have a little chat bot going so I can see what's going on, but I don't right now, so I just have to look over at my other monitor. So I apologize for that. Okay. So again, all of this is metal. So we are going through this rust like none other because it's got a weird mixture. We're going to be going over this with metal, with a steel, a dark steel. But before that, we want to get this rust tone underneath to show the age. especially on the edges. Well, I hope you guys are enjoying the great music while we do this small, tedious task. I'm just looking forward to it coming to life and was like, hurry, hurry, hurry. Paint this rust faster. Okay, there's one. One more. It's much easier doing the top than it was the bottom because of all the raised detail. So it's alright if you splash a little bit into the underneath. I'm trying not to. By just very lightly putting the brush over the top. But because everything's going to be covered in pigments and mud and stuff like that later on. And because even underneath these cross pieces, it's still metal underneath that too. You're going to get some sort of paint scraping and rust underneath that if you see it, so it's not wholly unrealistic. For the particular style that we're going for, we're trying not to, but... Okay. There we go. Clean off our brush. With these good brushes like the Winsor & Newton, I always clean them off in a bottle of isopropyl alcohol after paint to try to get any type of pigment that might be stuck. So that they're officially super, super clean. Okay, we're gonna hit these real quick with a hairdryer. Okay. Just to kickstart that cleaning process. Now, we grab the pigment. I'm going to go for this burnished steel look. So we're just working that pigment into the surface. So you can compare the two. See that metallic shine versus the other one not having the metallic shine. It's hard for me to tell. I've got a really crappy monitor that I'm looking at. I'm hoping that your screens are much better than mine, and you can see this metal, which looks amazing. Because of the rust underneath, it's really giving it that dark steel look. Old steel, you know, used steel. Sorry, touch the camera. So making sure these teeth, not just the treads, but the teeth themselves, are nice and polished at the tip, on the tip. Nice and metallic looking. Very, very cool. And then a lot of it's going to be hidden by mud and dust and goodies like that. But it's all about the beginning. So you've got enough pigment in there that we don't even need to dip. My brush is very metallic looking as well. Alright, so we've got the metal on. Now, it's time to dust it up. We need we're going to start with some lighter colors. I've got my natural umber, my dark earth, and I think a little bit of burnt umber, which is going to be damp earth. So we're just going to do a little bit of a mixture just to get a nice base layer. Now in the end, we're going to go for that mud look. So this is just preliminary. I do want some tonal variation going on. So I'm being haphazard with it, knowing that most of these lighter colors are going to get covered up. There we go. Alright, so I'm going to bring that forward. Sorry, I was a little bit out of frame so you guys couldn't see what was going on there. Oop, that was quite a bit. So I'm going to scatter in a little bit of this damp earth. Whoop. Throughout. And then it comes to life when we add the carbon black. Pretty cool looking. So once we apply this, then we're going to need to wash it to get it to affix itself. What's up, Brayden? Glad you're back. You missed a lot of the base painting, which was just adding old rust to these tank treads. But aside from that, we are adding dry pigments after putting steel pigment over these tank treads. So I'm thinking when I wash this, I'm going to wash this with some more of this carbon black. So I'm not super worried right now about getting all deep into the pigment, or to the treads themselves, because it's going to darken up even more. I'm hoping. Okay, so we got those two pieces. Let me grab a little container real quick. Pigment fixer. Dark pigment. It smells like white spirits, so I'm assuming that this is going to turn into an enamel. So we're making sure to wet the surface, all of the surfaces. That way the pigment adheres properly, and we don't lose it. This is definitely messy business. So I would say if you're going to be doing this and working with the pigments, then cover your workstation with something. I use black construction paper for mine, though I think I need to forsake the 100-foot roll of it that I bought for something that's a little bit more neutral and find some sort of gray construction paper instead. Because the black for dark projects like this Fury tank really makes it hard for you to see what's going on. But I don't want to do white, because that's just too bright. Powdery stuff is pigment. Yep. I am using Dark Earth from AK Interactive, and then I'm using Natural Umber from Vallejo, Burnt Umber, which would be Damp Earth. And Burnt Umber is the Vallejo color, Damp Earth would be the AK Interactive color. Carbon Black, which I'm sure black is black in all colors, or ranges. The reality is, it's all dark, because it's supposed to be mud. So more of the black carbon is going to show through with hints of the other colors than anything else. Because we're not going for dry earth, we're going for wet earth. For the most part. So I'm adding some of the natural umber to the underside, and we know that that's going to dry really, really light. So I'm hoping that it'll contrast well with the carbon black once we add that. That way we have what I'm going to call old dirt and new dirt. To me, it looks like we're going to have to go back over some of these metal spots and highlight them later, which is cool. Nothing wrong with that. They're losing some of their luster. Yeah. So I'm running over it real quick with a little bit of steel. I know that the steel will stick. It'll dry. We're probably going to need a little bit brighter steel in some spots. So we'll take that as we need to. Okay. So let's see, what's the next step? Okay. Next step is we need some mud. And we'll have to paint this a darker color later. So that's a little bit of enamel, and then my plaster's in the other room, so let me grab some plaster. Okay, so we're gonna make some mud. Actually, I didn't really care for the enamel version of this, so we're gonna make mud the acrylic way. Okay, throwaway brush for sure. So we're just making this nice paste, which will dry a lighter color. I'm starting to get used to that. Everything dries a lighter color, but good start. Sorry, I was looking for my texture, which I found. That was already next to my desk. Okay, so this is some very fine ballast. And it's red, but it doesn't matter that it's red. But that's going to provide texture. Okay. So. We start by applying this along the edges. We're definitely going to have to come back with some serious metal after this, because we are destroying that beautiful metalwork. But edgeware is one of those things that's actually fun to do, so... So I'm not going for an even pattern here. Now the cool thing about this being acrylic is that we can always work it away with water. And the pigment fixer, I believe, was some sort of mineral spirits. So our original tank treads color, all that dark color below, should stay when we water this down to start cleaning it up and adding different types of texture and that kind of thing. Yeah, it is definitely baby food-like. Now we're gonna make it even more chunky. That was probably a bit much. So really trying to pull out some three-dimensional texture here. Once we build this up, we can work some of it down again once it dries, like I was saying. Once it all dries, we'll get the colors to match and all that kind of stuff. Actually, we're not going to flip this over. I'm just going to let this dry. Real quick, I'm just going to get a mud coat on these edges. So that way I can flip it over and leave it flipped over. Yep. See, here we're losing some tread. That brush is destroyed. This technique is actually working really well. I'm surprised and thrilled. It's pulling out all kinds of interesting texture. So once this dries, then I'll go back through with the brush and reveal the actual treads again, so we can get that metal show up. But I think that's going to end up looking pretty realistic. We can add and remove more mud and stuff like that later on. So I think that's going to wrap it up for the day. So thank everybody for watching. I really appreciate it. Again, I apologize for pivoting so many times as I'm starting this channel, but I will be going offline for live. So we're going to stop doing live for a little while and focus on more personal techniques for you guys. For example, this entire process for doing the shank treads could have taken 10 minutes versus taking an hour. So I'm going to focus on editing and video content and making wonderful ways for you guys to learn and enjoy and be entertained without having all the tremendous amount of wait time. And we can do better, more diverse videos. I will still be making models, I will still finish this, and I will still record it, but we're just going to do it a little bit differently. It'll help me a lot. I've got 80 Civil War minis to paint, so I'm always constantly working on other painting projects, so it's going to be an interesting change, but I think it's going to be a really, really good change as well. Hey Braden, thanks so much, man. I will see you later. Please check in with me on Instagram or on my Facebook page at Modeler Mentor. Chat it up if you ever need any help for anything, or you just want to talk. I'm totally ready and willing for that. And of course, you know, I'll be on here posting the comments or whatever, and I'll be around. Everybody who's been watching the replay, who's been watching live, if you liked this video, please help support the channel by subscribing and also liking the content. And please share this content too. Share it on your Facebook pages, share it on your different social media so that we can get the word out that the things that you like to do, you're being able to learn how to do, and so that other people can enjoy it too. All right. I will see you guys later. Everybody have a great week.